and said he was determined to bring that same concept back to the UK and get it off the ground. Now, I'll be honest, at the time, I thought it might have been a bit hot air, Harry being very over and emotional and kind of speaking from the heart. But to be fair, he absolutely threw himself into it when he got back. He did that within the confines of the Royal Foundation that he was involved with the then Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, and he did get things off the ground.
Are you serious?
In part using funds from that Royal Foundation. But everybody within the royal household at the time absolutely acknowledged that this was Harry's passion project and he was left to pursue it.
Okay.
And when the Invictus Games launched in 2014, the King, I should say the then Prince of Wales, and the Duke of Cambridge very much came proudly to support him, but as spectators, not founders.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for all your comments. We do love receiving them. Please do try and keep them civil if we manage to be polite on the show. It's not so much to ask, is it? I'm sure you can in your comments. Thank you so much. Now, let's bring my panel back now, as a lot of you were also writing in the comments thinking that Rebecca called Harry and Meghan's trip to Africa a royal tour. Well, I think she actually said quasi-royal tour. Richard, we know it isn't a royal tour, but the point that has been made that, you know, some experts think that they're trying to make it look like a royal tour.
Well, I think it very much is a quasi-royal tour in the sense that, you know, they've been invited there, as Prince Harry stressed, by the Chief of the Defence Staff. You know, it's a formal invitation. Obviously, they're going to have very good security there. We'll learn more about their itinerary when it's released, but it will be a full programme of engagements. We know that it's connected with the Invictus Games and Nigeria's plans to become more involved in that. So it will very much have the feel of a royal tour, even if they are not working royals anymore.
What do you make of it, Charlotte? Because obviously Harry left being...
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
...part of the working royal family to step away from the difficulties of royal duties, you know, press intrusion, etc. But here it looks like he's trying to copy working royal life.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's one reason and one reason only, and it's money. Because he's going to lose all these Netflix deals, all these, you know, these big deals he's done, you know, the American Riviera Orchard. God, it's still so hard to say after all this time. It's so uncatchy. But, you know, all that stuff is all associated with the fact he's royal. And if he disappears off from royal life, then we're not going to think of him as a royal. He'll start slipping down the celebrity A-list ladder in Hollywood. So he's got to try and keep up this image that he is a royal on a royal tour. But we all know, well, at least here in the UK, I call it the pseudo-royal tour. You know, it's not a real royal tour. And they may wave, you know, on the steps here and there, but it's not the same. It's not official.
But also, wow! So, Richard, without the official diplomatic element to his trip, do these trips just risk looking like you're taking the paparazzi on holiday with you?
I think they do, but...
What?
But they were invited, you know, by the Nigerian government, so that gives it that sort of formal stamp. But it's not a trip that's been authorised by the British government or anything like that. So it's kind of, whatever happens is up to Nigeria and Harry and Meghan. But it's the first one they've conducted like this, and it will obviously encourage comparisons with proper royal trips, and I look forward to seeing how it goes.
Okay.
Indeed. Well, Charlotte, let's rewind a little bit. We know Harry's on his way right now, but to this week's visit to the UK, what was he doing here?
Well, he went to St Paul's Cathedral, where he did wave to the crowds at the top of the stairs, which I thought was quite a royal moment.
Stop it.
Because he was hosting a 10-year anniversary service to mark 10 years since the inception of the Invictus Games. And, you know, he was visiting one or two friends. It doesn't seem like he saw many friends and family. And he saw his uncle and his aunt.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
On Diana's side, Earl Spencer. And, you know, that was pretty much it, because he wasn't at the Buckingham Palace garden party.
No, and Richard, after the inevitable will they, won't they, of whether or not Harry would meet with the King, it was
What?
confirmed that he would not meet his father. Why do you think that was?
Well, it did come as a surprise to some because last weekend there were lots of reports, front page reports, that Harry was going to meet his father.
Except on the Mail, we will.
Exactly,
continue, yes.
certainly not in the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
Father.
Except on the Mail, we will.
Exactly,
continue, yes.
certainly not in the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
And then, so it became slightly embarrassing when Harry's spokesman put out the statement saying that, his father couldn't find time.
What?
And there was a bit of an edge to that statement.
Is that a weird thing to do, to make an official announcement in that way?
Well, they said they were just addressing, because they've had so many questions about it, they were addressing that directly. Otherwise, they may have felt that it would overshadow the trip completely. But it is very striking indeed.
Charlotte, we know the King's very busy. We've been discussing it not 10 minutes ago, and then...
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
Not a typical family, but in a rare week when they're in the same country, 2 miles apart, it speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It does speak volumes. The fact that he had 8,000 people at the Buckingham Palace garden party and there wasn't room for one more is really sad. Actually, this is the first time I've been truly, truly saddened by that dispute between them, because, of course, any king can make 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour for his son. He's the King of England. He calls the shots on every level. But the time just wasn't available. And also, William was around the corner in Windsor doing an investiture. There was no time for his brother. I mean, that's slightly more predictable. But just to think of them all...
Wait for it.
...in the same sort of region of, West London, more or less. And they didn't see each other. It's really, really sad, actually, I think.
Now, Richard, we talked earlier about the unexpected positive consequences of Charles's cancer diagnosis, while your fellow royal Richard Kay, wrote this week that the King's illness has, if anything, added to the estrangement between Charles and Harry. Why do you think he would say that?
No, it's an interesting point that some have made, and I've written about it.
Wait for it.
My newsletter this week, and I think it's the fact now that the King just doesn't want distractions. He's become even more focused on getting his work done.
His son's a distraction.
Yeah, I mean, people I spoke to this week said
awkward.
He just brings unhappiness, he brings drama. I mean, remember the conversations we've had in this programme before where we were talking about the King's birthday, and that became a whole drama that they were, from California we were getting statements about Harry was going to be speaking to his father on the phone, and then we heard all the contents of that conversation, that Meghan had joined in and this sort of thing after. So the King knows that, everything he says basically
Wait for it.
will leak out one way or another. And, for someone who is just determined to get on with the job, that's very problematic.
Yeah.
I have this theory too, back to the point about Nigeria, that if Charles was to meet
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
Harry, say yesterday, and then the very next day he flew to Nigeria, that's quite a close association, and it's almost like giving the royal seal of approval to that Nigeria trip, I think.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
And there's no way Charles wants to have anything to do with Nigeria, because he has no idea what Meghan and Harry are going to say, how they're going to act. The royal family do not approve that message, whatever it is. And if he saw Harry,
That doesn't make sense.
it's just too close an association, I think.
And also, while this was all unfurling, Charlotte, the palace announced a big engagement between the King and William. What is it, and what do you make of the timing of that?
Yeah, so they're going to do a joint engagement on Tuesday next week, because William's being made Colonel of the Army Air Corps. And I just thought the timing of the announcement, yeah, sure, they had to announce it this week, that's true. But the fact they announced it at 9 p.m, just at the height of all the speculation about whether
Wait for it.
Harry and Charles were going to see each other, and we just found out that they weren't. And it was, building and building, and then they just cut it all back and just said, by the way, Charles and William are going to do an engagement next week. William's going to be the head of this very important part of the army.
What?
And it really stopped everyone dead in their tracks and thought, oh gosh, this is actually war here. Because this is the first time the royal family have really pushed back quite hard on Harry in a public way, as best they can, because they can't give out statements like Harry did, saying,
Wait for it.
my dad doesn't have time for me. They couldn't do that, but they did do this, and it was a serious gesture, I think, and it was very pointed and definitely deliberate, that timing.
I mean, let's be clear. I mean, that appointment of Colonel-in-Chief, which the King has handed over to
Wait for it.
Prince William of the Army Air Corps, will really hurt Prince Harry. You know, it will be very painful, because Harry served with the Army Air Corps himself when he was in Afghanistan. You know, he was the helicopter pilot.